What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Pick Six Podcast, CBS Sports Daily, mostly daily NFL podcast. I'm Brinson. I'm your host. I believe it is Friday, June the 3rd, and we're going to talk some NFC South, a thrilling division full of competitive. Nah, I'm just kidding. It's a trash division. It's Tom Brady and everybody else. Joining me to break it down, the one, the only, John Breech. What's up, buddy?
The guy who specializes in breaking down trash. I have fought raccoons in my trash bin, and now I am here to break down the NFC South.
Would you rather fight a raccoon or like root for a non-Buccaneers NFC South team?
Fight a raccoon.
Yeah, me too.
Because that's literally one day. You just get it over with, probably 5 minutes. The NFC South thing, you've got to suffer through that for 18 weeks.
Right. Like if you're a Panthers fan, you're suffering for a long while.
Pull the Band-Aid off.
That's right. Let's talk about not the Panthers. Yeah, because the Panthers are trash again. Can't stress it enough. We'll start with the Buccaneers. Their win total is 11.5. The under actually juiced minus 120. They, of course, brought Tom Brady back, even though after technically retired, but they did lose O.J. Howard, Ronald Jones, Ali Marpet, and Alex Kappa, two guards, one who signed with your Bengals, Breech, the other Marpet, who surprisingly retired. Ryan Jensen came back there. They re-signed him after Tom Brady came back. He promised he would hang out with Tom for one more year, 13-4 last season. You look at the schedule, Breech. It ain't easy, but you don't really want to get in front of the Buccaneers with how bad the rest of the division is.
Yeah, the schedule is brutal. And so that is why this gives me pause. Obviously, if this was just who's going to win the division, I'd probably drop everything on the Buccaneers. But we've heard Wilson talk the last couple of weeks that he's not so sure the Buccaneers are going to make the playoffs, which sounds crazy on the surface. Then when you kind of look into it, it still sounds crazy. But here's what I will say.
Who does he think's winning the division?
I don't know. Or maybe he thinks they win the division with 9 wins. He thinks the Buccaneers are in for some major regression.
Okay. 9 wins and winning the division would still get him in the playoffs.
That's true. So maybe that's what he said. He just thinks they're going to regress a lot. So the one thing I will say on this division is that, number one, I think they probably go 5-1 in the division. So there just feels like there'll be at least one upset. Obviously, Tom Brady has never beaten the Saints in the regular season as a member of the Buccaneers. He's 0-4. So maybe the Saints split. I don't think they'll sweep the Buccaneers again this year. So if they go 5-1, then you think, all right, can they go 7 and what is it? So that was 5-1 in 6 games, 7-4. Can they go 7-4 in their other 11 games? And I'm not so sure they can. I mean, look, you look at their non-divisional games to start the season. You have the Cowboys, the Packers, and the Chiefs. Those are their first 3 non-divisional games. I mean, those are all possible losses. Those are brutal. That those are 3 of your first 4 games. And obviously, they have a week 2 game in New Orleans. And then you look at the back end of their schedule. They play the 49ers, NFC title game last season, the Bengals, the Cardinals. And so when you get outside of the division, all these games are pretty tough. So, Brinson, what I think I'm trying to say here is that I have talked myself into the under. I think they go 11-6, which 11.5, that is, just 12 wins with this schedule seems tough.
Sometimes you look at a schedule and you think to yourself, like, you can, like, and it sounds weird, but like you can look at their schedule and be like, this is really, it's just like, I don't know if it's a coloration of like the Rams, the Packers, and like just the way that all these good teams pop out off of the schedule, the Cowboys, and they're like a lot of them on the road, the Packers at home and the Chiefs at home, and that's fine. But like, I tend to agree with you. I think one of the major concerns too is that you lose 2 guards like that with the Tom Brady offensive line. Like, what if you go up against a team? Let's see who on here. Like
the Rams.
What's that?
The Rams. They're like a team with a good pass rush.
Aaron Donald. Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, it seems like that would be a really, really difficult matchup for them. So I tend to agree with you on the under, but I don't have any interest in betting it because
Tom Brady.
It's Tom Brady. I mean, yes, the Packers could be favored, in Tampa Bay, but I think Tampa will probably be favored and they could beat them. Same thing with Kansas City. And the 5 wins that they're probably going to pick up in the division just make it just really tough to fade the Buccaneers and go under here, I think.
Well, and it's crazy. You mentioned the Buccaneers losing 2 offensive line. They have replacements coming in. So this is not the same offensive line we saw last year. And this is not the year you want to be having that issue, because you look at the Buccaneers schedule. You know who the 5 top sack leaders were in 2021?
TJ Watt, Aaron Donald.
TJ Watt, Robert Quinn was number 2, Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Trey Hendrickson. At that top 5,
that doesn't include Aaron Donald.
And that does not include Aaron Donald. Out of that top 5, do you know who how many of those the Buccaneers have to play?
At least 4 of them that I counted, maybe all 5.
4.
Yeah.
So you're talking about the best pass rushers. The Buccaneers have to play the best pass rushers in the NFL this year with a completely revamped offensive line.
Yeah. It's again, like, it's just one of those where you want to take the under, but you have to bet against Tom Brady, which is like totally something that Ryan Wilson would do and make him look stupid. So I will begrudgingly pass on the under, even though I think you are perhaps correct about that total. The Saints went 9-8 last year. They added Tyrann Mathieu.
Oh, I thought we erased that clip.
I almost missed it. Actually, I was about to mispronounce it, and then I was like, "Wait a minute, I don't have a button." They added
Tyrann Mathieu,
Marcus Maye, Jarvis Landry, Daniel Sorensen, Andy Dalton, Dr. Charlton. They lost Teron Armstead, a big loss. They also lost Malcolm Jenkins to retirement, and Marcus Williams, another huge loss in free agency. The Saints total over under 8.5 and the over -130. What do you think about New Orleans, Breech?
I mean, look, they went 9-8 last year with Jameis Winston being hurt for half the season. So the fact that Sean Payton somehow willed that team to 9 wins really seems kind of amazing, but it was Sean Payton. He's one of the best coaches in the NFL. And even though Dennis Allen has been there for a while, I don't think he's going to be a huge drop-off, but I do think he's going to be a drop-off. And although the Saints did upgrade, you mentioned definitely at the safety position, they added 3 different safeties because they lost Marcus Williams. But Teron Armstead is a huge, huge loss. Jameis Winston, we still don't know how well he's going to play. And this isn't really playing for Sean Payton anymore. This is playing for Dennis Allen and Pete Carmichael. And so that changes things a little bit. And I hate going under here because that means I think the Saints will finish with a losing record. But I think I got to take the under. I think they go 3-3 in the division. And then with their other 11 games, I think they go 4-7. And, you know, we talked about the Buccaneers schedule being tough. Obviously, the Saints play the same exact schedule except for 3 different games. And the big difference is, you know, the Buccaneers get to play the Saints twice. The Saints don't get to play the Saints twice. They have to play the Buccaneers twice.
Right.
And so, again, you know, they have to play TJ Watt. They have to play Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa, Trey Hendrickson. And you know who else? They play Chandler Jones, who's now with the Raiders. And that Raiders defense is looking pretty rough, or pretty tough. So I'm going to take the under here, Brinson.
Yeah, I mean, I really think that the whole Sean Payton departure thing is being wildly undersold by not only, I mean, again, it's 8. It's not a ton of wins, but like, you know, this team wasn't, I mean, they were fine last year. You know, they weren't like a playoff team that actually scared you. And, you know, Sean Payton, as you pointed out, you know, did it with Jameis Winston. Like, I think Dennis Allen is probably capable of being a good head coach. And I think Pete Carmichael is probably capable of being a good offensive coordinator. But these, like the whole organization is operating as if nothing will change with the departure of Sean Payton. Like, he has been the face of the franchise. He has run like every facet of the franchise since he's gotten there. And I mean, like, there's been one season, Bountygate, where he wasn't there. And I believe the Saints were like a 5-win team that year.
Yeah, I think that was 2012.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
yeah. It went 7-9.
Yes, like that seems about right for this team. They took, I mean, Marcus Williams and Teron Armstead are major losses.
Huge.
Like, Teron Armstead, when he's healthy, is one of the best tackles in football, and I just don't know that this team, like, people act like Jameis was good last year, or like, and he was fine, but he didn't like blow me away with how he played. Like, he was mostly conservative and efficient, and when he was efficient like throwing touchdowns, and like they just weren't. They have no juice on offense, and I don't think they're going to be good with, with the Pete Carmichael, Jameis Winston combination. And then you point out the schedule, man. Like if they don't sweep the Panthers and the Falcons, this is a lock for an under.
Yeah. And you look at, they didn't ask Jameis Winston to do much. So the rest of the offense has to work. I mean, the one game where the Saints beat the Buccaneers, Jameis Winston threw 10 passes. And the Saints won 36-27. So it's not like he was out there single-handedly taking down Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. And they were winning games. When they beat the Packers in week 1, Jameis only completed 14 passes. So as you mentioned, he was efficient, but he just wasn't. He was almost like their secret weapon. Like Sean Payton's like, we're just going to run the ball and let our defense.
They're scared to show him. They're like scared to let him cork it loose because they know what would happen.
Right. And so it'll be interesting to see if the Saints take that same route or they try and play it safe. But now you know what the Saints offense is without Drew Brees. And it's because we saw a year of it last season. And I just don't think teams are going to be too frightened of it, even though they did, if they get Michael Thomas back, they drafted a receiver. So the receiving core should be better. But I'm not sure they have a quarterback who's going to be able to take advantage of it.
I tend to agree with you completely, and I would go under on the Saints. I really think the Sean Payton thing matters a ton, and they just I don't trust Jameis to be, someone who can make this offense hum at all.
And if Sean Payton was the coach this year, do you think you take the over?
Yes, at 8 for sure.
Yeah, I feel like you could see them absolutely winning 9 games if Sean Payton's the coach.
Yeah, I mean he's like one of the greatest offensive play callers in the history of football. Like that, you don't replace that easily, even if Pete Carmichael's worked with him forever. So I will go under here. I would have no strong play on it. It wouldn't be an auto bet for me. Like I think it's probably an under, but this division is so tough because the Falcons and Panthers could steal games from the Saints and Bucs. I don't think it'll happen, but if it does, it's going to completely flip. I mean, that's how all divisions work, I guess. But it's just when you pick an over in this division, you are banking on 4 wins against the Saints and the Falcons. I mean, the Panthers and the Falcons. You have to be.
Right. And
right. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, those same Panthers and Falcons.
I'm not comfortable living in a hot dog. It's still way better than your house, kitty. I can't do this anymore, Mom. If you won't listen to me, then I really don't have a choice.
So you're running away?
South Park, The Streaming Wars, now streaming.
Okay, well, I'll see ya.
Bye, honey.
Cute.
Exclusively on Paramount Plus.
I love that. I know I'm not supposed to talk about the commercials, but I can't help it. So if you're watching on YouTube, youtube.com/pick6, we are a Paramount brand company. Paramount employees, I guess. It's kind of weird to think about.
More amazing to think about.
No, I'm saying Paramount's such no, of course it's amazing, but it's like Paramount's such a pristine brand, you always go to the movie theaters as a kid and you see the stars come across. Anyway, we have, because Comedy Central is one of the properties, technically we are now co-workers with Matt Parker and Trey Stone of South Park and Eric Hartman.
We should get Eric Cartman on the show.
We should. And the commercial they just ran was a South Park special. So
let's talk about the Broncos.
They would talk about the Broncos. They do like the Broncos. Do you know that way back in the day, we should have bizarre guests on this podcast? I had the band Dale Earnhardt Jr. come on.
No, I didn't know that.
They're big Lions.
Fun fact.
So they came on and talked about the Lions. Yeah. Maybe we'll come back for the NFC North podcast. Just kidding. I think that one's already done. Anyway, the Carolina Panthers win total 6-120 juiced to the under. They went 5-12 last year, 5 wins in both of Matt Rule's season. They added Dante Foreman, Rashad Higgins, Austin Corbett, Xavier Woods, Corey Littleton, Damian Wilson, Matt Ioannidis, and Andre Roberts. They lost Stephon Gilmore, AJ Bouye, Hassan Reddick with the Philly and free agency. Amir Abdullah, AJ, I already said Bouye, and Morgan Fox as well. Look, man, the Panthers are terrible. And I know I don't want to get yelled at by the Panthers again for saying that they're terrible, but the roster is probably better from last year, but it is still not a very good roster. And they didn't solve the quarterback problem, which is just a thing in this league. And so they're going to be starting Sam Darnold or Matt Corral for 17 games. Even with a better offensive line, I have an impossible time believing that results in 6 wins given the schedule breach. To me, this is a easy under.
Look, the Panthers better than I do, but you're talking about a team. You said they had a bad roster last season, and despite having that bad roster, not only did they win 5 games, but what else did they do? A lot of those losses were by 1 score. So you're looking you're looking at 12 losses, and you're talking about 6 of the 12 losses were by 1 score. And so if you just flip 2 of those 6 losses, then this is a 7-10 team. And so I feel like they upgraded their offensive line a ton.
They did.
So when you look at it from that aspect, maybe that will make Sam Darnold a little bit better. And if Sam Darnold's a little bit better, or whoever the quarterback is, maybe they had Baker Mayfield, who knows? It just feels like this team could be slightly better than 5-12. But to hit the over, they need to get to 7 wins, and I'm not sure they can do that either. So going through their schedule, I feel like they could get to 6-10. And Brinson, you were saying, you don't know this division. What if the Panthers sweep the Falcons? Because if they do that and beat the Saints once, which isn't crazy, then you're 3/7 of the way to hitting the over. And so from that standpoint, I don't think it's crazy that they could hit the over. But in the end, I am going to go with the under because there's no way I could bet on the Panthers.
So they went 5-12 last year, right?
Yeah.
They started the season 3-0.
They did.
That's pretty hard to do.
It is.
And I know they did lose those 1-score games. Man, I mean, their only wins like the rest of the year were Atlanta at home and at the Cardinals when they Cam Newton came back from scored a rushing touchdown and a passing touchdown, and they beat Colt McCoy. I mean, that's just sort of that confluence of events is never happening again. Now, yes, they could sweep the Falcons because the Falcons potentially have one of the worst roster, or the worst roster in all of professional football. I think unless now you see on the schedule too, they do get the Buccaneers in week 17, so that could potentially be a win if Tampa's sitting at starters because they've won the division, they're locked into a playoff spot or a particular playoff seed. So anyway, they get the Falcons in week 18. I'm an idiot. Nope, they do get the Buccaneers, right? Or am I looking at the wrong team?
You might be looking at last year's schedule. They get the Saints in week 18 and the Buccaneers in week 17.
Okay, the Buccaneers could be sitting guys in week 17. More than likely not. There's also 18 weeks of the season, which I should factor in now, being that I do this professionally. Anywho, there's a chance they don't get Deshaun Watson. I mean, God, they could start 3-0 again, which is
and that's the thing. And like the
they
Giants
4-0, honestly. Like if they beat
with the Cardinals and the 49ers both have to travel cross country. Cardinals aren't going to have DeAndre Hopkins. Who knows what Trey Lance is going to look like as a starting quarterback? So there's just so many question marks that it's not out of the realm of possibility of them getting. Honestly, this is the bet I'd be most afraid of making in the NFC South. I know you said you stay away from the Buccaneers. I would stay away from this. I think this team could get to 7 or 8 wins. Even though I'm leaning under here, there's just too many question marks. They sweep the Falcons. They play the Seahawks. They play the Lions. Like you said, maybe the Buccaneers have clinched a while, or they can't get the number 1 seed by week 17. So they just said, you know what? We're locked into 2 or 3. We don't need to play anyone. Tom Brady's 45. We don't want to get him injured. And then, who knows, in the last game of the season, they could beat the Saints.
All right, I'm getting a little nervous about this under I took on the.
What?
No, because look, I mean, it's not crazy to suggest they could sweep the Falcons.
Not crazy at all.
Yeah. So if you beat the Browns without Watson, and you beat the Giants, and you win one of New Orleans or Arizona, and then you get Seattle and Detroit on the back end, that's 5. And then you have 2 versus Atlanta.
2 versus Atlanta. And even if you split that, you're up to 6. And then you just have to there's always that one surprising game like we saw last year with the Panthers Cardinals. Nobody thought the Panthers were going to win that, even though because Colt McCoy had just beaten someone else. The Cardinals.
Colt McCoy won 2 straight, I think, or he'd won 1 and then won the one after that. I can't remember which one it is, but yeah. Like,
I think they beat the 49ers with Colt McCoy. They beat the 49ers and Seahawks, or both of them. And yeah. And so that's why it was such a shock that the Panthers won that game so bad. It wasn't even close. It was a 24-point win. So, man, Brinson, did we just talk ourselves in the over? Is that what's happening?
No, I'm still taking the under because I think they're a bad team. But I am a little more scared about it than I was just a few seconds ago, thanks to your excellent analysis.
You're welcome.
Of the situation.
I'm trying to make Panthers fans re-like you after you went viral on YouTube for bashing their draft.
I know they really don't like me over the Matt Corral thing. Like, you know. And you know what? What's going to happen, Breech, is Matt Corral's going to be awesome this year as like a rookie and like win Rookie of the Year. I should probably bet Rookie of the Year for Matt Corral.
He's going to single-handedly lead them to hit the over, and then they're just going to rub both those things in your face.
Yeah, exactly.
For the rest of the time, not just for this season.
If Matt Corral goes to the Hall of Fame, I will have to move to a different country. And even then, it probably won't matter all that much. The Atlanta Falcons have a win total of 5.5. The over is plus 150. That's how badly the Falcons have been faded in the market, primarily because they lost Matt Ryan in a trade to Indianapolis. They also lost Russell Gage, which doesn't sound that important until you realize he would be, not their number 1 receiver, but before the draft probably would have been their number 1 receiver. They added a bunch of lower tier free agents: Casey Hayward, Lorenzo Carter, Damian Williams, Brian Edwards, who they actually got in a trade. Kadero Hodge, et cetera, Rashawn Evans. I mean, the bottom line though is you look at this roster, Breech, and I mean, I don't know. There's a path. I don't know what the Falcons' path is to winning like 5, 6, 7 games.
Oh boy, you know what the crazy part is? They only have to win 6, and I took the under so far with every single team in this division.
You went over on the Falcons.
I am going over with the Falcons. And some of the argument is what we talked about with the Panthers is that, number one, there's no reason the Falcons can't sweep the Panthers, right? So if they do that, and they're huge rivals with the Saints, they always play the Saints tough. They granted they had Matt Ryan last year, but they went 1-1 against the Saints last season. So if you get 3 division wins, you are literally halfway to hitting your over.
And you get the Bears and the Washington Commandos.
You get the Bears, the Commanders. They also have the Seahawks and
maybe the Browns with no Watson.
Week 3, the Browns with no Watson. If Deshaun gets hit with at least a 4-game suspension, because that's a week 4 game. And so all of those.
I can see the Chargers losing in Atlanta. Like, that's not a crazy idea.
Just traveling across the country. I mean, the Chargers always blow.
It's like the Chargers supposed to be great and they lose in Atlanta. They miss the playoffs by 1 game.
And then remember the theory you were talking about with the Panthers, it actually applies to the Falcons, who do play the Buccaneers in week 18, not week 17. And so if the Buccaneers are locked into any playoff position, they're benching everyone. That is 100%. Tom Brady is not going to be on the field in week 18 if the Buccaneers have nothing to play.
No question. Yeah.
So 6 wins just seems completely within the realm of possibility. I mean, this is a bad team, but they're not horrible.
No, they're horrible, dude.
No, this isn't like the Houston Texans.
Name 5 good players on this team.
Marcus Mariota.
No, you have 5 good players.
Casey Hayward's not bad. I mean,
stop it, Breech.
He's a step up from whatever they had last year.
Kyle Pitts,
obviously.
Kyle Pitts, I'll give you.
They just drafted Drake London.
And we just have no idea. He's a rookie wide receiver.
I mean, that's true. Cordero Patterson.
I love Cordero.
He tore it up last year.
Stop it.
I mean, considering all things
Grady
considered.
Jarrett, maybe. Yeah, Grady Jarrett's still good, but they might trade him.
AJ Terrell
is a good player. But you can't get a 5.
How many was that?
It's sort of like the Buccaneers. Like, I would definitely take the under on the Falcons.
Young Wei Koo, man.
Young Wei Koo is a good player.
He counts.
I wouldn't want to trust the Falcons to win 6 games. Like, I think it's a really, really bad roster. I mean,
well, let me ask you this: if you had to take one over out of the Falcons and the Panthers, which one?
One over
out of those 2?
Neither.
You can't. You got to take one.
I'll take the Panthers, I guess.
Somebody's offering you to pay your bet, but they said you have to take the over.
It's plus 150 for the Falcons. I guess I'll take the Falcons over, but that makes me nervous because Barnwell and I did over unders, and I took the Panthers. He was like, actually, I like the Falcons under so that would makes me a little nervous. He thinks it's a 2-win team.
Well, are those 2 wins against the Panthers? I mean, which team is worse?
I think the Falcons are substantially worse than the Panthers.
Then you should take the Panthers as your over.
I did. I mean, the Panthers have like 5 or 6 good players on defense. The Falcons have like 2.
I mean, you definitely need more good players than that. What if Mariota goes off, though?
I mean, if Mark...
Is that possible?
No. It's really unlikely. Like, he doesn't have a starting job. Like, the Falcons don't chase after Deshaun Watson. They still have Matt Ryan. They don't have Mariota. Like, Matt Ryan was like the last domino to fall, and he was like, oh, you wanted Watson? Well, I'm gonna take that trade to Indy after all. And so now it's like the Falcons were like, oh my God, there's nobody left to get. We're not going to trade for Baker Mayfield. Let's just sign Mariota and bridge it for a year. Like this is a team that tried to rebuild on the fly and now is realizing the reality of the situation is understanding that they're not retooling. They are completely rebuilding.
I can't believe you think the Falcons are trash.
Oh, the Falcons are trash, bro. Just like the whole division. But you know what? You're not trash, Breech. You're the best.
You're going to be the least popular person in the southern portion of the United States.
Already there. Already happened. All right. That'll do it for us for the NFC South Win Total podcast. For John Breech, I'm Brinson. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. See you guys later.